teams consolidated the reports. Instead of reporting here, we've just consolidated the reports from various commissions into a program of action. So that's going to be our first item. That's going to be presented and then engaged and then adopted. From there, we are going to receive the awards conferred to various organizations or various recipients. The first recipient will be Focus. That's going to receive the Medal of Friendship from the Cubans. And Comrade Father Lapsky is going to receive on behalf of Focus. The second order of solidarity is going to be received on behalf of Comrade Chair Mahlako. His wife has arrived yesterday, is going to receive on behalf of the family of Comrade Mahlako. So those were the two awards that we're going to receive. And then thirdly, we're going to have a declaration. And when we're done with the declaration, the ambassador of Cuba is going to give a message on behalf of Cuba government. And then Comrade DSG, Comrade Nomvula, will then close the conference. So we have got a very short program. And if we've all settled down, I think I can now call upon Comrade General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, if he's ready, to present the program of action. Comrade Opan. Cuban people, lovely people, here we are, far from home. Okay, ayaziwa le ngoma la ekhaya, it's all right. You do for us, Cuban people, lovely people. We are far from home. We shall love you, we shall need all the things.
Amandla. Comrades, Amandla means power. So when we say Amandla, and you say awetu or ngawetu, which means power to the people, so that the international guests or guests apart from those from South Africa are aware why we keep on saying Amandla. It's power to the people. Amandla. Thank you. I'm going to read the addendum to the declaration, which is a program of action. It reads as follows. The 7th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference, held in White River, Mpumalanga in South Africa, from 15 to 17 January 2024, adopts the following program of action until the next conference. On education, health, science and technology. Strengthen cooperation on health, including telemedicine, pharmaceuticals, combating disease, health promotion, training of medical personnel, and support the work of the Henry Reeve International Contingent of Doctors specialized in disasters and serious epidemics. Encourage cooperation and exchange programs between universities, academics, and students. Maintain partnerships in training doctors and engineers. Consider Cuban teachers at the high school level and ensure appropriate recognition of Cuban degrees. Embrace the fourth industrial revolution. Integrate technology in education and administrative systems, job creation, and collaborate with Cuba on telemedicine. Explore how Cuba addresses climate change, analyze media narratives, and partner with institutions for educational initiatives. on Pan-African solidarity action and coordination, adopts the declaration of an annual Cuban Solidarity Focus Week, culminating in an Africa Day of Solidarity with Cuba on 23 March each year. The Focus Week should include lectures, cultural activities, screening of documentaries, and other local and national actions in all countries to raise awareness, educate our citizens on Cuba, and campaign for the immediate end to the economic blockade against Cuba. Add important Cuban dates, such as July 26 to our calendars, to raise further awareness on Cuban solidarity. Promote and be consistent with the legacy of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro Ruz and the Cuban people in Africa in the form of in-person and/or virtual events, conferences, exhibitions, panels, political events in different countries to remember their contributions to the liberation struggle. Establish a Pan-African continental and in-country coordination network and mechanisms to streamline collaborative efforts and create friendship societies in countries where they don't exist. The coordination network should coordinate the implementation and monitoring of African solidarity efforts agreed on at this and future conferences, with the host country reporting to the next Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference on the implementation of this program of action. Create a Cuban Pan-African Solidarity Fund to support solidarity with fundraising activities such as crowdfunding and contributions from individuals and states. The Pan-African Coordinating Mechanism should also create a database of all organizations, networks, and societies working on Cuban solidarity on the continent in order to facilitate cooperation and exchange of information so that we can support each other's solidarity activities. On economic solidarity cooperation, strengthen economic cooperation between Cuba and our countries in such areas as telemedicine, agriculture and agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and other common sectors, including on trade, investment, business to business, entrepreneurship, exchanges, and technology transfers. Collaborate activities in trade, finance, and economy in defiance of the blockade. Let me repeat this sentence. Collaborate activities in trade, finance, and economy in defiance of the blockade. Through state enterprises, the African Continental Free Trade Area, BRICS, the African Union, and other forums, in order to promote developmental trade and self-determination, as well as country-to-country developmental trade agreements. Support the active collaboration between trade unions in Nigeria, Namibia, and South Africa, and the Cuban Trade Union Federations, and encourage trade unions across Africa and in the global trade union movement to follow these examples. Review policy and legislative environments that prohibit trade and economic relations with Cuba. Encourage tourism as part of solidarity, enable free movement through lifting visa requirements, explore direct flights to Cuba, and work with travel agents such as Amistur in Cuba towards the establishment of an African brigade, that is, of travelers. On people-to-people and diaspora solidarity. Raise awareness through social media, citizen and political education on solidarity with Cuba as support for global humanity, not just an act of charity. Mobilize community-based activities. Organize grassroots and community mobilization activities, including documentary screening, poetry sessions, and other cultural programs and exchanges to build strong networks of support for Cuba in our countries with a focus on sectoral organizations. Expand the campaign to collect non-perishable goods in all our countries and ship this at least twice a year. Let me repeat this section. Expand the campaign to collect non-perishable goods in all our countries and ship this at least twice a year. This is not the declaration, sorry. At this current period that Cuba is facing, this is one of the most important and immediate action required of all countries. Set up a network of alumni who were trained in Cuba to share information and expand and contribute to solidarity activities in our respective countries. Organize community-based agricultural programs towards food security, empowerment programs to enable communities to build and maintain their own facilities, e.g. in schools, in clinics, access roads, and other socio-economic infrastructure, and short programs for primary health care. These exchange programs must not be confined to matriculants and graduates only, but should also empower all our communities, including in early school leavers. So this is a way of sharing examples of what we can also do here, solidarity level from minimal agricultural processes in our communities. So it's not just an intellectual, high-level kind of work. And do ideological work to engage the battle of ideas work on solidarity and history and position of Cuba and its contributions to Africa and global humanity, as well as the national development achievements of Cuba despite the odds. Popularize revolutionary teachings of Comrade Fidel Castro and other Cuban revolutionaries. Develop communication strategies through television, radio, social networks, newspapers, and other platforms that allow the Cuban reality to be disseminated and denounce hostile policies against Cuba and disseminate solidarity activities. On cultural solidarity, encourage sporting activities with and between African and Cuban sports clubs as an educational mechanism and for fundraising in support of Cuban solidarity activities. Encourage cooperation and exchange in film, art, music, broadcasting, and other cultural exchanges. Encourage the building of monuments, as in Angola and other countries, celebrating the Cuban contributions to African liberation, especially where those who fell in this struggle. Take note that the Museum of African Liberation, based in Harare, Zimbabwe, will also recognize the role and contributions of Cuba in the armed struggle across the continent. On women and youth solidarity, encourage women's solidarity through cooperation amongst women's leagues of national liberation movements and develop an action plan on women's solidarity, colloquiums on women of Cuba, and activities coordinated by Pan-African Women's Organization to advocate for the dignity and respect for the Cuban women. Young Women's Dignity Packs beyond South Africa, in other words, collaborate on young women dignity packs to be sent to Cuba. Use the promotion of UN resolution on women, peace and security as anchor for solidarity actions amongst women. Strengthen youth solidarity with Cuba through brigades, student exchanges, activities at universities and colleges, social media solidarity and awareness campaigns, exchange through national youth services, social media campaigns, and other activities to raise awareness amongst new generations on Cuba, including inclusion of the role of Cuba in our history curricula and showcasing collaboration between Cuba and Africa in various sectors, and the creation of a Cuba-Africa Youth Forum. On diplomatic and government-to-government actions, encourage liberation movement and political parties, particularly those in power, to take a prominent role in advocating for the lifting of unilateral financial and trade blockades against heroic people of Cuba. This should involve leading international calls, mobilizing support, and engaging in diplomatic efforts to address the economic challenges faced by Cuba, particularly mobilizing for the majority vote at the United Nations and the African Union resolutions. Urge all African governments to raise the issue of unilateral and unjust economic blockade against Cuba in diplomatic relations with the USA and countries of the North, and raise the matter in all multilateral and regional institutions. Review memorandum of understanding or agreements to strengthen bilateral relations and cooperations. Promote the establishment of Cuban institutions in African countries, focusing on education and leveraging African minerals and other goods produced on the continent to support Cuba during challenging times. Strengthen and work towards the establishment of local government twinning agreements between African and Cuban municipalities, towns, and cities. Write a letter to the government of the United States of America, signed by conference participants, calling for the end of the unilateral economic blockade, for the removal of Cuba from the US list of countries sponsoring terrorism, and deliver to US embassies in all our countries. Reporting on the 8th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference. Request South Africa, as the host of the 7th conference, to monitor the implementation of this program of action and to hand over the reports at the next conference. Mama Action, you still have a long duty to do on this and to give report to the next conference. Note the offer from Mozambique to host the next 8th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference in the date still to be determined. This, comrades, is the program of action that the various commissions tried to respond to the practicality that was called upon by the host country through Comrade Nomvula Mkonyan, the first Deputy General Secretary, Secretary General of the ANC, to this conference, and many other speakers who came through. I will now hand over back to you, Comrade Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nopala, for the presentation of the Commission's report. Welcome, DSG. If you do see our Minister of International Relations, you must tell her that our team performed as usual. They didn't disappoint, okay. Yeah. They didn't disappoint. Okay, comrades, we hope that the various commissions feel represented by the summary of the discussions of those commissions in this program of report. However, we're going to take hands for enhancement or enrichments if needs be, but otherwise we want the conference to endorse them, so we'll take the mover and a seconder. And if you do move or you want to add, you will help us to introduce yourself, so the purpose of the organization you come from. So there's a hand at the back, followed by the hands 3, 4, 5, 6. So in that order, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope there's a roving mic at the back there. So we're discussing. Okay, there's also a hand there at the back from COSATU, at least that one I can see. And then, yeah, so that will be 6, 7. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let's appreciate the presentation of the addendum as read by the GS of the SSCP. My name is Mzwandile Masina. I'm the member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. I would like to move for the adoption of the report as amended. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The ANC moves. Number 2.
Thank you very much to the chairperson of the session. My name is Joy Maimela from the ANC NEC. I wanted to second the adoption of the program of action. Thank you very much.
Okay. The ANC move and second. All right. That, by that, so it doesn't mean that we can't discuss. That's all right. Follow my leader.
Good morning, comrades.
Thank you.
My name is Denja Yakub from Nigeria Labour Congress.
Yes.
While I agree on the motion for adoption, I just want to point out that we should add, as we agreed, as most of us spoke yesterday, that there should be a specific day of action that every country in Africa will have a mass protest, all right, against two things in our various countries. To the United States, one, to the United States embassies against the blockade, mass protest I meant. Second one is to urge our various countries not to collaborate, not to be I've lost the word, but not to be accomplices, accomplices of the United States in the blockade by disallowing embassies of Cuba in our various countries access to financial transactions through banks. So those two items, I think we should have a particular day, one day, either July 2026 or May 25. The whole of the continent, we should have those days to protest against those two things. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3 here. Number 4 here. Yes. The mic is coming.
Thank you. My name is Ike Naham. I'm from the New York, New Jersey Cubacy Coalition in New York City and part of the national and really North American solidarity movement, which has been growing and advancing in the last period, and the National Network on Cuba, U.S.-Cuba Normalization Conference Committee, all these groups. I think this is a fantastic document. It represents a huge advance for your unity in terms of the Pan-African unity around this, reflected at this conference, but also sending an important political signal to the world. The only thing about unity in defeating this blockade. On point 34, I would just make a friendly amendment that you add a sentence or something that's in terms of a commitment to reach out, for this conference to reach out to the solidarity movement around the world, but in particular on that point to the forces in the United States and Canada and North America, so that we can coordinate our activities, that we can work with you to strengthen this commitment. So thank you very much. This is such a wonderful program. I can't wait to get it out to our folks in the United States. I'll say one other word, which is that for us, building the movement against the blockade in the United States, we found that the historic and current issue of Cuba and their solidarity with Africa and vice versa is one of the most powerful things that we have in terms of bringing this message, along with Cuba's medical internationalism. So this will be a tremendous help to our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 5. Yeah. Covered. Yes? Yes.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. My name is Thaddeus Yetigona from Namibia, SWAPO Party, where I serve in the Central Committee of the SWAPO Party Youth League. My enhancement is under cultural solidarity, specifically point 26, where it says, encourage the building of monuments in Angola and other countries celebrating the Cuban contribution to the African liberation, and the point goes on. But I think from the Commission, the intention was to have a Cuba-Africa museum where perhaps those goes to this museum make a financial contribution, and those proceedings will be given to Cuba in terms of supporting Cuba. So it's about having a Cuba-Africa museum where everybody who goes there and make a financial contribution, it's done in the name of giving those proceedings to Cuba. Definitely where perhaps you display materials in exhibiting the participation of Cuba, especially in Southern Africa in terms of liberating our countries. Thank you.
Thank you. 6.
Thank you very much. My name is Hilma Nikanor from the SWAPO Party in Namibia. My comment is with regard to, let us look at point 34 about writing a letter to the government of the United States of America signed by conference participants calling for the end of the unilateral economic blockade, for the removal of Cuba from the US list. But I also feel...
Sorry, you said 34.
Where am I? The one, oh, I'm following. Okay, thank you very much. The one I have is A. My apologies.
It's 36. all
Yeah,
right.
the 36. Now, for the end of the unilateral economic blockade, for the removal of Cuba from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism, but I'm also missing the total withdrawal of the US from Guantanamo base.
Okay.
That should be brought in.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the other is on women, youth, and solidarity. Which one is that one there? What number is it there? Because on my paper here is 27.
Okay, proceed.
Yeah, I just wanted us to be specific. The UN resolution they are referred to is the UN resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, to be specific. So thank you very much.
Okay, pleasure. Kosatu, at the back. 7.
Good morning, President and the chairperson of the session. My name is Gerald from the Congress of South African Trade Unions. We rise to support the program of action as presented, President, because for us it's a historic document that seeks to galvanize all progressive forces in the African continent and beyond to practically provide the solidarity support to the Cuban Revolution. So we're indeed excited as the Congress of South African Trade Unions that will now have a consolidated program that seeks to bring everybody on board as we intensify our Cuban, our solidarity to the Cuban Revolution. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. There was a last hand here. I see there's a new one, but there was a last hand here. Number 8 was here. So it's fine. I will come to you, but let's start here because that was the last hand. I'll come to you.
Thank you, Comrade Chair. I have a suggestion in terms of amendment by way of inclusion because I feel this provision is not catered for. Mr. Chairman, my preambular comment is that we, the political parties here, if we take the example of Uganda, we have our party chapters in America. And during our NEC conference, which is NEC is our second highest organ, we give them air tickets to fly to Uganda and attend NEC because they are members of NEC. So they are active there. My proposal is that we should plant a system, a seed inside the United States so that it germinates from there. Mr. Comrade Chairman, something which rots from inside takes more decay easily. So my proposal is we, the political parties here, should instruct our chapters in America to demand in their respective places that the American system should lift the embargo. Some of our colleagues in America are even voters there, and the American legislators listen to them. So that is my proposal, because we have 54 African members in AU. If we each have political parties in America and we have chapters who are demanding for this, it would give a big impact. Even for us in Uganda, we agree that our opposition political parties are in America. But on Cuban issues, we are united. They should send the same voice. When we come to Uganda, we sort out ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. I just got that you are from Uganda, but you didn't introduce yourself, but it's okay.
My name is Major Awich.
Okay.
I'm the Director for External Affairs for NRM.
Mandla.
So the proposal is each political party to direct its chapter members in America to demand the American legislators to lift the embargo.
We got that. Okay. Come here.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, my name is David Thomas from Namibia. Can you hear me?
Namibia played well last night.
Yes.
It beat Tunisia.
I just want to contribute on paragraph 8, paragraph 10, and paragraph 32. Those three. On paragraph 8, just which say establish a Pan-African continental and in-country coordination network mechanism to streamline collaborative efforts and to create. Maybe there is where I want to propose an amendment. Maybe it's not to create, because those countries that have not created this friendship association with Cuba, I think is their prerogative to create. So we can only encourage them to create. On paragraph 10, again, to create a Cuban Pan-African Solidarity Fund. Maybe we can only stress the need to create. It's just a proposal.
Okay.
On paragraph 32, I think it would read well if it ends after Cuba, then full stop. During challenging time, I think we can do without that. Because whether it's challenging time or not, I think these institutions are needed they need to cooperate. Thank you.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you very much. So first thing is that the numbering will have changed because when others were being added, so they will move. So what you have may not be what is appearing here on the screen. That's the first thing. Secondly, we have noted that the program has been endorsed, moved and seconded. However, there are comrades who are getting, I wouldn't say provoked, but awoken to some issues that they are now raising their hands to add. I want to appeal that this be the last round. You spoke, yeah. So there are hands here that I see they are just raising. They are not part of those that were not. Can you raise them so that I count them? There are two. There are two. The other one is already having a mic without being recognized. There at the back, even this one has a mic. So clearly they wanted to speak Nyankan. Okay, we'll start there and then follow here. No, Comrade Jenny? Comrade Jenny, you'll follow. We're starting at the back. All right. Yes. Start, my leader. No, there's a hand at the back who's having a mic there with a white cap.
Oh, okay. Thanks, comrades. I'm Comrade Muketsi from Focus and CASA as a graduate of Cuba. Also, I do support the program of action. But however, yesterday I was forming part of the peoples to peoples actually relationship with Cuba. And one of the comrades that is invited from Cuba was telling us that he's coming from an agency of tourism, which is AMISTUR, which is part of ICAP, which is the Organization of Friendship with the People, ICAP. And she was promoting that we need to promote using AMISTUR and tourism to Cuba. I think it should be noted directly because when we went there in 2019, AMISTUR was taking us to different places and all that with buses in a convoy. And it's important that we note that tourism, and we need as brigades to use AMISTUR as an agency. And also it was proposed also yesterday, we said that it would have been important to have another international brigade on the 1st of May, like we did in 2019. It's almost 4 years now that we are not having an international brigade. We need to work towards that. Maybe Africa as a continent should drive that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last one here. Yes.
Hello. Hello. My name is Erin Feely Naham. I'm also from the U.S. Cuba Solidarity, New York, as well as U.S. Cuba International Normalization Committee. I just wanted to raise that in our group, which was towards a new, just, and peaceful global order, a suggestion had been made to take the international tribunal that was just held in Brussels, that a document was produced, and to bring it to various people in Parliament. It's a working document that can be seen, which points out the injustice of the blockade, not only for Cuba, but for the countries who do not and are not allowed to collaborate or work with Cuba because of it. So to possibly use this document, which is created and easy to pass on to whoever is in power in your parliament or in your legislature. So to utilize that document, which has already been created and has been circulated.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, comrades. Like I said, the program has been endorsed. There have been additions and reformulation of some paragraphs. I want to check with the drafters, the team that consolidated the report, whether they have comments on the inputs, whether there's concurrence, because there was not an opposition to the program. And then I'll give the General Secretary to sum up the discussion. The drafters, drafting team, anyone? Okay, Comrade Jess.
Thank you very much, Comrade President. I think, comrades, from the first question about day of action, it was reflected that we have identified March 23 as that day of action across countries. It doesn't mean that we can't do other activities on other days, whether it's 26th of July. But the March 23 is recognized or was recommended as a continental day of action preceded by a week of action. So I guess that covers the comment. The other one, which I think is important, on the Cuban embassy's inability to transact financially, this is extremely important. I remember I was dealing with one country, Syria, in South Africa. They had a similar problem. And the current ambassador of Syria in South Africa was just about 3 months in South Africa after having been an ambassador in the USA. Now, this is what shocked me. This ambassador is not allowed to open a banking account here in South Africa. But he takes out the bank account of the Bank of America that he has done in the USA under international law. So in the USA, the US government allows it. But when he's in South Africa, the US government say to financial institutions, those ones should not be given ability for banking transactions. And in our discussion, I'm like, yes, we are complicit. We're actually implementing US aggressive foreign policy almost voluntarily. Because we have no obligation to impose US foreign policy against international law. Because the US itself, on this case, when he was ambassador in the US, Syrian ambassador in the US, they gave him ability for financial transactions. So it's a very important point. And I think that we should be able to come up with policies that compels the bank not to defy international law. On the idea of the chapter mobilization, I think it's an important area. I just feel that maybe the drafters, Comrade Phoebe, can find a way to express it. Because the NRM's, is that NRA or NRM? There's a difference, eh? The NRM is the political movement. NRA is the army. Yes, the National Resistance Army. The proposal is that, if I understood it well, from different country-specific, our chapters in the US. In other words, we also create our chapters in the US to lobby various legislators in the US against continued imposition of the economic blockade. Maybe we can propose that, if I don't understand it well, the NRM Uganda draft us a formulation there, Comrade Phoebe. On the annual brigade, yes, I think I agree that we need to resuscitate these brigades. This is very important. As well as on the international tribunal. These are also important questions that they must be fully highlighted. Then there was an issue about the link up with the US and Canada, particularly the solidarity movement and chapters, that side. That's also important. They do exist. I think there are a series of them. Maybe we can get also a proper formulation about what is the suggested point of action from our side, that is on the African continent side. Otherwise, I think, comrades, on 34, we should accept the amendment there. Then that will conclude the comments, apart from those that were highlighted from the screen, in terms of the 34 amendment talks to reaching out to solidarity movements around the world, especially in the US and Canada. But that's the one that I said we can get a different formulation and so forth, given that already this exists as a movement, just to have a clarity of understanding from our side, the necessity for that impact. I think it's important, comrade, to note that this conference has taken 35 key resolutions on Cuba. This is very important. If we can start an implementation plan, the host country has been mandated to monitor implementation and compliance throughout until we hand over the report to Mozambique in the next conference. So this therefore take us to the end of the plan of action. Now we've got something concrete something we can hold ourselves accountable to in terms of action plans. Thank you very much. Amandla.
Thank you, Robert, and I think must now, as a conference, clap for ourselves for having worked so far. Now, thanks, comrades. So, as I said in the beginning, we should be going to the declaration, but before that, there is an important item that recognizes the work and the tireless struggle and efforts of men of ourselves across the globe. And the President of the Republic of Cuba saw it fit to reward some individuals and organizations here. I want to call the President of ICAP, Comrade Fernandos, to come and render this item by way of explaining the essence of the awards, and then we shall call the recipients one by one.
Bueno, primero, ¿hay traducción al inglés? No, pero bueno, yo lo pregunto porque si está la traducción, ¿no hay? Bueno, entonces usamos el servicio de la... Bueno, buenos días a todos. Para nosotros es un honor este momento de reconocimiento a compañeros y organizaciones que tanto han hecho por Cuba.
Good morning, everyone. This is a special moment for us since we will recognize the work of men and women who have done a lot on the solidarity work for Cuba.
En más de una oportunidad durante estos 3 días de conferencia, conversando con algunos compañeros y compañeras de Sudáfrica y de otros países presentes aquí,
In more than one occasion along the 3 days of this conference, we have been talking with some people from the different solidarity movements of the continent.
nosotros comentábamos que se sentía y sentíamos cierto vacío y cierta sensación de ausencia y extrañábamos la presencia del compañero Chris Matlaco.
And we were talking that we were missing something along this 3-day conference, and is that we were missing the presence of Comrade Chris Matlaco.
A quien nos acompañó en muchos de estos eventos de solidaridad con Cuba o los eventos relacionados con la lucha por la paz o eventos sindicales también.
Who always stood with us in this kind of events in the past, in the movement for the peace of the world and in the solidarity work towards Cuba.
Y nosotros, desde el Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos, a propuesta del Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos, como establece la ley de condecoraciones en Cuba,
And we at the Institute of Friendship with the Peoples were thinking to propose to deliver a friendship medal as the law in Cuba states.
esta propuesta se eleva al presidente de la República.
This proposal is presented to the President of the Republic.
Y el presidente de la República es quien determina y aprueba el entregar esta condecoración.
And it's the President of the Republic who approves the delivery of this kind of awards.
Yo le voy a dar la palabra a Yaimí, la directora de África del Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos, para que brevemente reseñe la resolución firmada por el presidente de la República y primer secretario del partido, compañero Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez.
I now give the stage to my comrade Jaime, the Director for Africa of the Institute of Friendship with the Peoples in Cuba, to briefly present the resolution that was signed by the President of the Republic of Cuba and First Secretary of the Communist Party.
Buenos días, muchísimas gracias.
Good morning, thank you very much.
En este momento especial quiero invitar a que nos acompañe acá a la camarada Modi, por favor.
And now we invite to the stage Comrade Modi, please, in this special moment.
Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, presidente de la República de Cuba, hace saber en el ejercicio de la atribución conferida que, tomando en consideración que el presidente del Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos, ha propuesto tocar dicha orden con carácter póstumo al camarada Chris Matlaco y de conformidad con el artículo 128 de la Constitución de la República de Cuba, ha decidido dictar el decreto presidencial 738, donde se establece la entrega de la orden de solidaridad con carácter póstumo a Chris Matlaco.
Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, President of the Republic of Cuba, awarded the Order of Solidarity to Comrade Chris Matlaco.
Para nosotros es un honor hacer entrega de esta medalla a su compañera para que la guarde como un reconocimiento a Chris Matlaco por toda su obra solidaria y por toda su lucha de tantos años en apoyo solidario a Cuba.
For us, it's a very special moment to deliver this solidarity, this order of solidarity to Chris' wife, as a recognition of his tireless work in the solidarity movement with Cuba.
¡Viva! Aún uno se emociona en momentos como este, recordando compañeros. Y bueno, en este país, Sudáfrica, existe una agrupación de amigos de Cuba, Focus, Friends of Cuba Society, que lleva muchos años ejerciendo la solidaridad con Cuba. Entendemos que la solidaridad con Cuba en Sudáfrica está generalizada, pero Focus se encarga de ponerla en práctica de manera organizada.
This is a very moving moment for all of us. And we also have to recognize that in South Africa there is association of friendship with Cuba, Friends of Cuba Society. And even though we know that solidarity with Cuba in South Africa is a general thing, it's not only a thing of an organization, it is the Friends of Cuba Society who leads the work of solidarity with Cuba in the country.
Y en reconocimiento a esos años de lucha, de solidaridad, y además porque conocemos del compromiso de continuar ese trabajo, expresados entre otras cosas en el desarrollo de esta organización y desarrollo de esta conferencia.
And we would like to recognize the work that has been done by the organization through all these years, and that we can see some of the work during this three-day conference.
De igual manera, el presidente de la República de Cuba otorga a Focus como organización la medalla de la solidaridad.
Likewise, the President of the Republic of Cuba awards the Order of Solidarity to Focus as an organization to recognize the work of solidarity towards Cuba.
Es por eso que invitamos a subir acá a nuestro querido padre Michael Lapsley, a Hope Papo, a nuestro querido Moketsi, en representación de la organización.
We invite to the stage Comrade Father Michael, Comrade Hope Papo, and Comrade Moaketsi Sekokoani from Focus.
Mandla. Okay, comrades, thank you very much for that important and emotional item on our conference. Now we're moving towards the declaration, and we're calling now once again Comrade Solomon Paila, the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, to read for us the declaration. And as he does, we will ask the conference to stand. Oh, they say it's not necessary, it's too long, so we'll sit down while, as long as we don't doze off as he speaks. Comrade, yes?
Amanda! Amanda! Long live Cuba, long live! Comrade Chairperson, let me start by reading a special declaration on Palestine, which was just given to me here, the final version of this declaration, before we read the declaration of this conference. There was a view from some of the comrades that because of the Palestinian question at the moment, let's have a special resolution on it. And that resolution was finalized, and it reads as follows. We, the delegates at the 7th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference, held in Mpumalanga, South Africa, condemn the fascist genocide being perpetrated by the apartheid Israeli Zionist regime against the people of Palestine. We equally condemn the United States of America's support for the genocide being perpetuated in Gaza. President Biden, like Prime Minister Netanyahu's hands, will forever be stained with the blood of thousands of non-combatant innocent men, women, and children of Gaza. The daily mass murder of citizens by Israeli Defense Force has turned Gaza into a concentration camp, death chamber of Palestinian children. By allowing and being active participant in the above heinous acts, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Biden have taken over where Hitler and Goebbels left off. We condemn the genocide committed at their behest and sanction. We support the principled internationalist decision of South African government for even arraigned a charge of genocide against Israel at the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands. We pledge our support for the struggle of the people of Gaza for human rights, dignity, freedom, and their inalienable right to self-determination. We urge an urgent ceasefire and the immediate end of hostilities, and for urgent humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. That's the end of the resolution.
Thank you very much, Nobala. Can we check with conference if the resolution, special declaration is accepted? Yeah, in an international meeting, slipping of hands means acceptance. But I see the hand there, maybe, yes. Comrade, we just get a mic, comrade.
Thank you, Comrade Chair. May we please extend to say we pledge our support for the struggle of the people of Palestine instead of only the people of Gaza. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm informed that the mics on the tables are now working. So if you want to speak, you can use the parliamentary gadgets that you have there.
Testing,
Comrade Hope, yes. Yes, proceed, Comrade Hope.
My name is Hope Papo. I'm representing Focus at this conference. I think what Comrade River.
No. Let's use the manual one.
I was saying I support what Comrade Reniva has said. My name is Hope Papo, representing Focus, and also on the ANC in the conference. This text of the declaration is fine, but there are people massacred, injured, and thousands detained in West Bank. So when we talk about Palestine, it will cover also West Bank, because the struggle of Palestine is not only in Gaza, it's all over that territory. So I think that's what the issue is, but everything is fine. We must talk about Palestine.
Okay. I have not missed any hand. So once again, by clap of hands, we are accepting the declaration with its additions. Alright. Can I invite back to the stage the General Secretary for the conference declaration? Thank you.
Amanda. I want to make a comment. Comrade President, you know, when you read declarations of broad organizations, when they are presented to you to read, your job is to read. Sometimes there are things that the formulations that have fundamental difference with them that I just read because you have agreed to them. Let me first recognize the first Deputy General Secretary of the ANC, Comrade Nomvula Mkonyane, and the entire delegation of the ANC, and the leadership of the SACP present here, led by Comrade Matala Masuku, and members of the Central Committee, and the entire delegation of the SACP, and the leadership of COSATU, led by Deputy President Mike Shingange, and other office bearers and various leaders of affiliates of COSATU are here. I saw they've sent senior leadership, and the entire delegation of COSATU, and the entire delegation of SANCO, and recognize Comrade Fernando Gonzalez, President of ICAP, and the Cuban delegation at this conference. And also recognize Father Michael Lapsi and the entire Friends of Cuba Society in South Africa. And indeed, take this opportunity to recognize Comrade Mudiei Mahlaku, the wife of Comrade Chris. Unamita Musadi, you called her Musadi. She grounded him in a much more serene way. He felt more comfortable every time he was home. And I just want to indicate, Comrade Fernando, we had promised as the South African Communist Party to send Musadi to Cuba. She was supposed to travel with Chris before he was ill-disposed. And I can confirm to the conference as well that we've already communicated this matter with our comrades in Cuba. At an appropriate time, we'll send her to visit Cuba. She has never been to Cuba. And she has been fascinated all along about this country that has achieved so much with so little. And the involvement of a life partner, Comrade Chris, who today we want to thank the Cuban government and the Cuban people, and in particular, President Diaz-Canel Miguel, for his recognition of Comrade Chris' efforts in the work of solidarity with Cuba. We still commit that Comrade Mudiei will have to visit Cuba and spend some time, and as indicated, we have already informed our comrades in Cuba. Let me recognize all delegates from the entire continent and from other parts of the world, in Asia, in Latin America, in North America, in the Middle East, all who are present here today, and since we started our conference. And I want to say to Comrade Nomvula Mkonyane, well done. All of you, you know the challenges that we've been going through as a liberation movement, and massive offensive has been launched against us in South Africa by international capital, trying to dislodge us from the leadership of our country and the strategic leadership we have provided in our region as well as on the continent as a country. And with that, this conference signified our own strength and consistency that imperialism will never defeat us. And Mama Action, that's we call her here at home, Comrade Nomvula. So you can rest assured, Comrade Fernando, that this memorandum of action will be implemented, because the head of the international department in the ANC in particular is not just a member of the secretariat of the ANC, it's a woman of action. That's why we call her Mama Action. We'll all work together to make sure that this memorandum is implemented, and as we go and hand over the report to Mozambique. Having said that, comrades, let me read the declaration. Declaration of the 7th African Continental Meeting of Solidarity with Cuba. We, nearly 300 delegates, having convened from 15 to 17 January 2024 in White River, Mpumalanga Province, South Africa, express our sincere gratitude to the South African Revolutionary Alliance, comprising the African National Congress, South African Communist Party, Congress of South African Trade Unions, and South African National Civic Organization, as well as civil society organizations, the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, and the Friends of Cuba Society for hosting the 7th Africa-Cuba Continental Meeting of Solidarity. This meeting served as a crucial platform for us from our respective African countries and global regions, including Europe, Latin America, North America, and Asia, to strengthen our efforts and deepen our international solidarity with the Cuban government and people. We pay tribute to the Cuban people on their historic revolution of 1st January 1959. This year, January the 1st, marked the 65th anniversary of the Cuban Revolution, a decisive advance in the struggle for national self-determination, freedom, and socialist construction to end capitalist exploitation and imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism. As we met, the imperialist regime of the United States under Joe Biden, its latest president, has intensified the inhuman economic, trade, investment, and financial blockade, as well as the accompanying political propaganda and other forms of regime change machinations against Cuba. Yet, during his campaign for the office, in his platform, Biden made a commitment to return to the normalization of United States relations with Cuba. His predecessor, Donald Trump, had adopted 243 draconian measures to intensify the blockade against Cuba, rolling back the little normalization progress whose first step appeared publicly at the former South African President Nelson Mandela's memorial service. In a historic event on 10th December 2013 in Johannesburg, for the first time since the Cuban Revolution, United States President Barack Obama publicly shook hands with Cuba's President, Commander Raul Castro. This was subsequently followed by engagements and other steps towards the normalization of US-Cuba relations. However, in his announcement in the United States 2 years later, on 17 December 2014, Obama reaffirmed adherence to the achievement of US interests in Cuba. This, he said, was his administration's goal for what he called, I quote, United States-Cuba normalization, close quote. He did not change US imperialist interest, but asserted, quote, normalization, close quote, as a substitute for what he called, quote, an outdated policy that had failed to advance, unquote, those interests in Cuba. We had long denounced, and to this day still denounce, the imperialist interests and machinations of the United States. However, we welcomed and we still welcome normalization of US-Cuba relations. But normalization must itself be normal, genuine, free from any agendas to subvert, undermine, dominate, and exploit Cuba by other means, including, quote, soft power, close quote. Before the Cuban Revolution, working people in Cuba lived under wretched, semi-colonial, and super-exploitative conditions. Comprado capitalists, wealthy landowners, along with their political lackeys, hangers-on, and beneficiaries of their patronage networks, all subordinate to the United States imperialist interest, were in charge. They called the shots, each according to their importance and exercise of power and or authority in the economy and or in the state. The bourgeoisie super-exploited the working class, accumulating wealth and depriving ordinary people of decent livelihoods and emancipation. The victory of the Cuban Revolution ended the regime of the US-backed Fulgencio Batista, the dictator. It marked the beginning of a transition to socialist construction in the Western Hemisphere. We support the efforts of the government and people of Cuba in their struggle to refuse to go back. After the revolution, Cuba became a bastion of anti-colonial and anti-imperialist solidarity and a major inspiration to peace-loving people across the world. The Cuban people showed the way to victory in the struggle to end colonial rule and exploitation in the global South. As Africans, we will continue to cherish the revolutionary discipline, resilience, and strength of the Cuban people in the Battle of Quito Valley, Angola. The battle raged on from the end of 1987 into 1988. Cuban soldiers, alongside our African liberation counterparts, fought courageously, others shedding their blood for Africa's liberation. In a historic victory, they defeated the arrogant army of the apartheid South Africa. The revolutionary triumph in the Battle of Quito Valley resulted in the liberation of Angola and Namibia and paved the way for the negotiations that ultimately brought an end to the apartheid regime in South Africa. This marked a significant transition to democracy in Southern Africa after decades of liberation struggle. We express our sincere gratitude to the selfless Cuban people who sacrificed a lot and returned to Cuba only with the mortal remains of their fallen heroes and not a single African mineral or shred of wealth. The Cuban Revolution gave both hope and material support not only to Africans, but to other people in different global regions against oppression, exploitation, domination of one country by another, and disease. An independent country of over 11 million people, Cuba upholds the social, cultural, and economic rights of citizens with guarantees to their right to work, education, health, housing, food security, and social protection. Today, Cuba is the only country in the world to have fulfilled the Millennium Development Goals. It has made this and other achievements despite 6 decades of an economic blockade imposed by the imperialist regime of the United States. While it claims to be a democratic state, the United States is an imperialist dictatorial state in both its posture to Cuba and relations with many other countries. The United States blockade of Cuba is illegal. Included in the unjust blockade are unilateral sanctions outside of and undermining the United Nations legal and multilateral frameworks and annual resolutions. Through the blockade, the United States is still against all of us in our respective countries and global regions. The blockade encompasses extraterritorial impacts directly affecting our countries and non-US citizens and companies through sanctions, prohibitive and punitive measures in trade, investment, financial and other relations, economic and political. We salute the resilience of Cuban socialist construction, which continues despite the heightened blockade. We condemn every US administration up to and including the Biden administration for their intransigent attitude towards global appeals to lift the blockade completely with immediate effect and unconditionally end the occupation of Guantanamo Bay, a Cuban territory. This represents an assault on the human rights of the Cuban people and all the global citizens it affects. We declare our unwavering commitment to strengthen the bonds of solidarity and friendship with Cuba. Besides offering support for many of our national liberation struggles, Cuba offered vital medical, engineering, and other educational and training assistance to many people in Africa and other global regions. In solidarity with other countries, Cuba trained and is still training medical doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals, engineers, teachers, and other professionals. Cuba's Henry Reeve Medical Brigade has helped other countries during the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. This is terrorist in the minds of the imperialist leaders and legislatures of the United States. In using every trick in the book in pursuit of its imperialist agenda, the United States has included Cuba in its spurious unilateral list of countries allegedly sponsoring terrorism. We condemn this with the contempt that it deserves. For 31 years, since 1992, the United Nations General Assembly has passed a resolution annually for the United States to end its illegal blockade of Cuba, and of all countries, only the United States and the apartheid terror state of Israel has unleashed, of all countries, only the United States and the apartheid Israel regime, which has unleashed a genocide of the Palestinian people, have consistently voted against the resolution. The United States has intransigently disregarded both the United Nations and the global community, which have condemned and called for an end to its blockade of Cuba. Also, it has maintained its occupation of the Cuban territory of Guantanamo Bay despite international condemnation and calls to end it unconditionally with immediate effect. Cheers. Now is the time for additional efforts in the struggle for a peaceful and just world order. Consistent with our continuing condemnation of the US blockade of Cuba, its extraterritorial impacts, and foreign occupation of Guantanamo Bay, we have adopted the following programmatic measures. 1, we stand united in our efforts to raise awareness and intensify peaceful political protest directed at United States embassies in our countries, amongst others, against the United States' unjust and illegal blockade of Cuba, all together with its extraterritorial impacts, against the United States' unjust occupation of Guantanamo Bay, against the United States regime change agenda and other destabilization mechanizations in Cuba, against the United States unilateral list of states that allegedly sponsor terrorism, and against the inclusion of Cuba in the list. Of anything, Cuba is the liberator, not a terrorist state. 2, we commit to deepen collaborative ties with Cuba and Africa, starting within our respective countries in various sectors, including but not limited to trade, investment, and financial relations, and in healthcare, education, agriculture, infrastructure development and maintenance, energy, science and technology. 3, we will embark on an African continental defiance campaign against the United States blockade of Cuba by, amongst others, engaging with our respective governments to prioritize and enhance direct nation-state to nation-state solidarity-based trade, investment, and financial relations with Cuba. Embarking on a campaign for African continental trade, investment, and financial alternative programs based on solidarity with and preferential treatment of Cuba. Calling upon and engaging with BRICS in pursuit of alternative nation-state to nation-state and international payment and currency system inclusive of interbank payments with Cuba. Mobilizing enhanced and consistent humanitarian aid in our respective countries and an African continental humanitarian aid initiative for Cuba. Building African regional and continental networks of truth to combat the United States-led imperialist propaganda and malicious media content against Cuba. Connecting our national, regional, and African continental solidarity networks with similar associations overseas in defense of Cuba's national self-determination and freedom from imperialist machinations, aggression, domination, exploitation, and other forms of subversion. Building a stronger global movement of solidarity with Cuba, including by enhancing solidarity training and coordination. 4, deepening our party-to-party relations with the Communist Party of Cuba and people-to-people solidarity relations with Cuba against all forms of US-led imperialist conduct. Finally, we pledge our solidarity with the people of Palestine in the face of a genocidal onslaught by the apartheid Israeli regime and call for an immediate ceasefire and support the Palestinian people's just struggle for national self-determination and freedom. Since 7th October 2023, the apartheid Israeli regime has killed over 24,000 Palestinians through indiscriminate bombardment in the Gaza Strip. The innocent casualties include over 10,000 children, over 7,000 women, and over 300 medical practitioners, and over 1,000 elderly people, and over 120 journalists. We condemn the genocide in the strongest terms possible and overwhelmingly pledge our support for South Africa's case to hold Israel accountable at the International Court of Justice in The Hague, Netherlands. This is the end of the declaration. Thank you very much. Viva Cuba, viva! Long live Fidel Castro, long live! Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Fidel Castro, long live! Forward to socialism, forward! Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nopala. Comrades Conference, that is our declaration for the work we have done for these 3 days. I start with you. Okay, I see hands here, maybe it's additions, and if you can just hold on, I will start with the DSG. The DSG wants to speak, and then I will come back to the floor. DSG?
Amandla, thank you very much, Comrade Mike, and thanks to the drafters. Comrade Chair, without undermining what is currently in the international space, the issue of Palestine, this conference is about Africa-Cuba solidarity. And therefore the punchline goes with what then becomes our end, our last message or the end paragraph. And therefore I want to propose that the last paragraph can't be about Palestine. The last paragraph must be our pledge to Cuba. Having said so many other issues and having also reflected on Palestine, we've been able to put the struggle of Palestine to a higher level. Let this declaration have more meaning on why we are gathered here. Thank you, Nyabong.
Sabonga DSG. Thank you. So, Comrade Obed, Comrade Precious, those are the two hands I'm seeing. All right. Comrades there and comrades here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 5 there, 6. You covered, comrade, you covered, I saw you. 7. So I start. Comrade Obed, Comrade Precious, I saw you, Comrade Molly. I'm missing nothing here. Right. Let's try.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Robert Bapela, the NEC member of the ANC. The correction has just been inserted as I raised my hand. Instead of saying White River, we must say Mbombela City. Then the rest follows Mpumalanga, Republic of South Africa. So rather than put them Mbombela City, and I'm glad that it has been inserted. And the last one, on the action points, where we say we must trade, invest, and on agriculture and all those things, can we put tourism as an added action? So that even when we send brigades, it's not just for study tour, it also it's a tourism, but natural tourism must be encouraged towards Cuba. So if you could add it as an action point too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Comrade Precious.
Thank you, Chair. Comrade President, I have 2 points to make. So when the DSG speaks about that paragraph, immediately my thinking when I saw it was that instead, I agree with what she has said, but the paragraph before that must in fact reiterate firmly that we stand with all oppressed people of the world, starting with Palestine. We mention Eswatini, Western Sahara, we mention Sudan, and all the countries we're in solidarity with here. Some are here, some are not here, including in the DRC. So I wanted to make that submission. The last one, Comrade Chair, I was in Commission 5 that dealt with a just world order. And part of our submissions, passionate submissions there, were that we need to reimagine what does this just world order look like. And what we should, in fact, deepen in the discussions here is that while we are fighting imperialism and confronting capitalism, issues of all oppressed people must be elevated, such as women. And we did make a submission there that apart from the fact that there should be a follow-up conference, a women's solidarity conference that is going to make us to sit, to elevate the issues of the women of Cuba. You can imagine what they go through with the situation that we hear of Cuba, but more importantly that there's still patriarchy on top of that. So we said we need to elevate the issues of the women. I therefore submit, Chair, that part of the declaration must then say, as we make our commitments, that we do commit and we spare a thought to these women that don't only go through the machinations of imperialism, but on top of that still have to live and struggle against patriarchy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You can just pass it next, no? Thanks, Comrade Precious.
Thank you. My name is Buka. I'm the national chairperson of the Solidarity Committee with Cuba in Kenya, and I'm also the secretary of the Kenya Communist Party. My first general comment is if we can have a particular resolution on Western Sahara. Then I have particular, mainly for maybe to bring some clarity or maybe to insist on a few things. So my proposal, there's a paragraph in the declaration. The paragraph reads, in a historic event on the 10th December 2013 in Johannesburg, for the first time since the Cuban Revolution, United States President Barack Obama publicly shook hands with Cuba's President Raul Castro. I would like that after that, probably we could add, however, this gesture did not deter the ongoing imperialist measures seeking to suppress nations striving for self-determination, such as the intensified blockade against Cuba. Number 3, there is also part of the declaration that states, an independent country of over 11 million people, Cuba upholds the social, cultural, and economic rights of citizens with guarantees to the rights to work, education, health, housing, food, security, and social protections. That's the original. Now, I will propose that we improve it to insist on the Cuban systemic change, and I propose an independent country of over 11 million people. Cuba stands as a beacon of socialist transformation, upholding the social, cultural, and economic rights of citizens. It serves as a model of guaranteeing the right to work, education, health, housing, food security, and social protection, showcasing the positive outcomes of a socialist system. Number 4, the original text reads, the revolutionary triumph in the Battle of Quito Carnaval resulted in the liberation of Angola and Namibia and paved the way for the negotiation that ultimately brought an end to the apartheid regime in South Africa. My proposal, comrades, is that we retain the first part, which is the revolutionary triumph in the Battle of Quito Carnaval, a testament to the united working class, resulted in the liberation of Angola and Namibia. It paved the way for the negotiation that ultimately brought an end to the apartheid regime in South Africa, then highlighting the global impact of the working class solidarity. Number 5, the last part that you said, we condemn this with the contempt it deserves. I propose we vehemently condemn this imperialist action with the contempt they deserve, reaffirming our revolutionary commitment to resist and overcome such attempts to undermine the struggle for self-determination. Lastly, there is a paragraph also that says, in solidarity with other countries, Cuba trained and is still training medical doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals, engineers, teachers, and other professionals. An improved version is, in unwavering solidarity with other countries, Cuba has not only trained, but continues to train medical doctors, nurses, and various professionals. Then I've added, this exemplifies the internationalist spirit of the working class in fostering global cooperation against imperialist agenda. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Comrade, yeah, there's a, yeah, yes, you're next, and then followed by Comrade Mool, then I'll go ahead and back.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey. Thank
Hi.
you, Comrade Chairperson. There was a comment made in the statement that the U.S. economic blockade affects non-U.S. citizens, and I wanted to mention that the blockade also affects U.S. citizens because there's no free trade or commerce with Cuba, there's no family reunification, no freedom to travel to Cuba, send money to Cuba. Also, African farmers in the U.S. want to trade with Cuba, they can't do that because of the blockade. There's no scholarship and educational exchange because of the blockade. We don't have access to Cuba's amazing medical system, in so many different areas of a cultural exchange. So I want to just amend, it also affects U.S. citizens.
Thank you. Yes, Comrade Mullen, then I'll go at the back.
Thank you, Comrade Chair. Mine is not substantial at all, but just to say, just to add somewhere in the declaration just before the end, to say Frelimo commits to host the 8th African Continental Meeting of Solidarity with Cuba, considering that Frelimo has expressed that in the plenary yesterday, and the conference seemed to have agreed, and it will help direct others who are not here who intend to attend the next conference. And lastly, just to support the point raised by Comrade DSG, Comrade Nomvula, that the last paragraph of the declaration should be about this conference and our commitments, and that whatever else that is there, it can be somewhere in the middle. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Now, the back, I had few hands, if you can just raise them again, because I see we don't have to compete, we're all going to speak. Yes, you'll start? Yeah, proceed.
No, thank you, Comrade Chair.
Where is
I think I'll follow on what Comrade Moli is raising, on what was raised by Comrade DSG. What happened in terms of, because all material terms must always understand the flow of any solidarity conference. Before the presentation of the declaration, Comrade Tusoli presented a special resolution on the question of Palestine. It means this conference, the Africa Conference on Cuba, elevated the question of Palestine up to a level where this conference have resolved on a special resolution. Now what the DSG is saying, we cannot, on the declaration, on the last paragraph, where we're supposed to be making what is called a clarion call, that we must focus on the question of Cuba, we bring the question of Palestine. Those are the politics, comrades. We cannot also bring internal conflicts in other countries which were not raised in this conference. We must never defocus the outcomes of this conference by dragging every other issue which exists in the African continent, in the world. Let us focus on what was presented by the Secretary General of the Communist Party, Comrade Soli, as a declaration of conference. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, comrades. And I think so, I wanted to make this point earlier on. Unfortunately, I was not in every commission. That indeed we declare on what has been going on in this conference. In other words, that which we have discussed, which largely it's about the solidarity with Cuba. So that we need to be careful about the rest of the other things that we can always focus on. And I hear succinctly that the proposal is that it's best suffice to leave the issue of Palestine at a special declaration, because that's rather than also get it into the main body of the Cuban Solidarity Conference. So, comrade, you are standing, you will speak, the comrade Mzandile will follow, and then they will move, I think there's our hands that other side. Yes.
Muito obrigado pela oportunidade. A delegação angolana defende que é necessário integrar dado importante.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The delegation from Angola would like to make a proposal.
Nós propusemos que a nossa declaração, independentemente de ser enviada às diferentes embaixadas pelo mundo, que seja encaminhada também à União Africana.
We would like to propose that the declaration that we are approving today be sent to many embassies throughout the world and also the African Union.
Pensamos ser essa uma forma objetiva de colocar a África unida aos nossos propósitos.
This is a way to show that Africa is united around our proposals in our declaration.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Angola. So I don't miss any hand, and then the GS will. Oh, sorry, there was Comrade PJ. You are the last one, Comrade. Okay, okay. Apparently, I see that.
Amandla, it's an intervention, comrades. I want to propose that we ask all other comrades who may have fundamental amendments to forward this to the drafting team there at the corner there. And that the drafting team be allowed for the next 15 minutes plus to draft a formulation for the final commitment on the declaration. Yes, indeed, this was our mandate to the team, but somehow they conflated the things. Like I said, I read what I'm given from the drafters because they bring everything from commissions. Now, we want to propose that we adjourn for 15 minutes so that we allow the drafting team to do this formulation, and any other person, those who are remaining, who may have fundamental issues to include on Cuba, immediately forward that to the drafting team, so we don't start another meeting again. That's my proposal, our proposal with the DSC Comrade Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. So that's a proposal from Secretariat for the DSG and the GS. In other words, we're taking a 15 minutes comfort break and then come back, receive the consolidated final draft. We adopt it and then we go to the closing remarks by the ambassador and the DSG. Comrades, our 15 minutes starts now. Once your watch says 15 minutes done, can we please come back? Thank you. I'm sure you saw the drafting team where we must submit our inputs. Comrade PJ, Comrade Mzandile,